Hello, my beautiful people. My name is Key, and I'm a technical marketing engineer for Humio. Just a few days ago, our advanced log management course for spring 22 was initiated and is now going full speed ahead. Session 1 was a blast as we explored strategies and actions that help maximize observability when leveraging Kubernetes. Now, to put you in the right setting for session 2, I thought that we could use a classic management tool commonly known as the Ishikawa. The Ishikawa diagram was created by Keyauri Ishikawa to help identify factors that lead to a specific effect or response. Now, in our case, let's use the diagram to identify a common challenge in the logging space, being the ability to decrease mean time to resolve. Oh, God. All right, everybody. So let's get started with our own Ishikawa. So in order for us to walk through our own scenario, I built out a use case. So the name of this company is actually called Metro Surveillance that we're going to build our Ishikawa for. And we're going to work through why they are seeing an increase in their mean time to resolve. Okay, as I said a little bit ago. And that mean time to resolve is actually increasing. So we have to discover a way to identify where's that root cause, and that's exactly what we're about to do. So with Metro Surveillance, they're identifying that they have an increase in mean time to resolve. And also within this use case, we're going to say that their endpoint data is starting to rise up because they have all of these cameras and everything all around the city, trying to make sure that everybody's remaining safe. They were established in 1980. As well with 200,000 employees, so a pretty big organization that has recently adopted hybrid architecture. So we have a little bit of complexity there. You're talking about an organization that started in the 80s and is adopting hybrid. Okay, sounds like a good switch to me. All right, let's understand why, although they've made these changes over time and they're starting to see more data coming in, let's see if we can identify what's taking their mean time to resolve up. So let's start with storage. Okay, let's consider a couple of things in the storage space. All right, so as I've stated, Metro Surveillance is starting to take in a lot more data. So with that in mind, they still have some legacy software in place because they started in the 80s. So that's pretty common. Along with that legacy software though, they're starting to see a little bit of data bloat because they have all those new endpoints. So with that data point in that legacy software, we can already probably feel a little bit of tension between the two because legacy software is not necessarily adaptable to new modern ages of receiving data or even leveraging that data. So one of the subcomponents of this data increasing again is due to endpoints. Right, so now we have storage down. So let's transition over to something else that's super important in this equation, and that's speed. Okay, so when we consider them going to a hybrid architecture, we already know that we may have a couple of boundaries due to Metro Surveillance having a on-prem and in cloud footprint. So with that hybrid architecture, we could also expect for Metro Surveillance to also have a plethora of disparate tools. So each of their tools could be completely different, all pointed products addressing different things. So of course that's more to manage, which is not necessarily the best thing in all cases. There's another piece to the top of our Ishikawa that we definitely have to consider, and that's the organization's ability to monitor. Okay, so when it comes to monitoring, if you've been in this space for a while, you understand that context is gold. So let's consider how they're receiving context from their tools. And when I speak about context, more important than ever, having that security embedded into that context, meaning that you're able to identify where you could pinpoint any type of threats that could be coming through that context is very important. So there could be a separation between both the scene and even the login solution, which could cause a lot of headache. And there's a lot of different integrations that we're seeing in the industry today, but these are two monitoring components that could be a big cause of mean time to resolve for them right now. The bottom portion of the Ishikawa is going to make a lot of sense to the sales folks that are watching this, right? So the first piece that could be a huge problem when it comes to MTTR or mean time to resolve could be organizational, right? The organization could have some hindrances within it. So you could have some individuals who are just not equipped or need time to get ramped up on the product. Or there could be some silos there too, because if you've been around since the 1980s, you have some specialists that are very hardcore when it comes to some of that legacy software, and that could cause silos amongst the groups. So the second bone at the bottom of the fishy cobweb will also make a ton of sense to the sales folks who are watching, because when it comes down to cost itself, a lot of times that has a lot to do with what's going on in the meantime to resolve. And the reason why I say that is because of investment, right? With that legacy footprint, that organization has put tons of money into what they have, right? Metro surveillance has been going since the 80s. So they have stuff that they want to keep. But in addition to that, they may also have SLAs that are in place that are hindering them from moving away from those products as well. So these are two areas. In addition to that investment, they could have been not chasing, that's not the word we want to use, but they could have been trying to fulfill the need of their end users to modernize. They need to modernize to keep up with the time. So those are also some things that could implicate to cost restraints leading up to mean time to resolve increasing. The last component is a little bit different from the first two, being organization and cost, and this is just general security. So I'll elaborate more on that. When we think about a company like Metro Surveillance, if they have cameras that are in less fortunate areas, then they could be susceptible to theft. And this is not only to less fortunate areas, could also be in prominent areas. But generally, if they have cameras that are in places that are easy to obtain, they could look at physical theft. That could be something, as well as hacking as well, right? So what if there's a digital threat that's causing them to lose out on some of that data that they need in order to get to a point of resolve, okay? All right, so let's see if we can build a story based off of what we have. We have a ton here, and I promise we're wrapping this up, okay? But let's say with that data increase, that's super hard to handle. We have organizations that are dealing with petabyte scale data, which is not easy to maintain or store or even analyze. So that could be difficult. Not to mention disparate systems. Having to integrate various systems, no matter how valuable they are in a point fashion, is super hard to do. And even down to security, from a security monitoring perspective, being able to have a consistent language across all of your toolings, it can be really difficult, especially in comparison to SIEM and logging solutions in particular. Hey, it is a Humio video, okay? So I'm going to talk about logging. Let's come down to the bottom of the Ishikawa or the Ishikawa diagram, and let's look at some additional things that can happen as well. Because just say, from an organizational perspective, there are a lot of employees who are decision makers and who are serious about what they bought. Not to mention from a personal perspective, but also from a dollar figure perspective. If they spent millions of dollars since the 80s on a specific pointed product, they want to keep it. They don't care how bad MTTR looks, right? Until it's their job. Then they got to change it. But when it comes to the next piece, physical theft is a real thing, especially for a company that provides endpoint solutions that are facing the public, right? It could be damaged as well. It could be more than just theft. So those are all things to consider. So when we look at these areas in two different parts, we see that we have a trend in IT here, and we have a trend in business here, okay? So when we want to look at the root cause of what's increasing the mean time to resolve for Metro surveillance, we now have better insight into what that could potentially be. We have a data increase that could be caused by disparate systems. And within those disparate systems, we have a gap within the security based on the separation between our SIEM and logging solutions. When we come down to the business side, there's some employee that makes the decisions and writes the checks that says, hey, I have an investment that I can't let go of. And not to mention, I have products that are out on the streets right now that are being taken, which is causing a hole within the data that we receive and that we can analyze at a particular time. So these are all problems that correlate and tell a story into identifying what is contributing to the problem of an increase for mean time to resolve. That's how you leverage the Ishikawa diagram. Now, as we can see from the Ishikawa diagram, a little strategy is sometimes all that it takes to find out where things are falling apart. Now, on Thursday, February 10th, we'll deliver additional ways to identify the root cause of issues before reaching your end users. And during this time, you can expect to hear from Ashish Chakraborty, Humio's technical marketing engineer, as well as Steve McMahon, which is CrowdStrike's CIO and VP of Operations, as well as AWS's principal solution architect, Samir Vasantapuram. Please be sure to register for the Advanced Log Management course for Spring 22 in all sessions right now by visiting humio.com. And for each session you attend, you'll receive a certification and badge, so don't expect to leave with your hands empty. I'm excited to learn more alongside you, and I look forward to seeing you there. Be safe, be blessed.